Hey everybody. So a couple of weeks ago, Tudor Jones, this billionaire hedge fund manager, he gave a speech, one of those TED Talks, okay? And he talked about something that we're having happens to be a national conversation right now. It's about income and wealth inequality. Now, this guy's a hedge fund manager. He's worth billions of dollars. He has made his money as a speculator, basically not really contributing at all any value to the real economy, okay? A gambler, casino, as the markets have pretty much become, all right? Now, I give Jones a lot of credit for coming out, in his status and speaking to this problem of income and wealth inequality. It's a huge problem, and it has gotten to the point now where the disparity between the 1% or the 0.1% and everybody else is so huge. Historically, we have never seen a disparity this wide, okay? And it just cannot keep on going. Well, maybe it can keep on going because the very, very rich basically control policy. They also control, law enforcement and probably the military as well. So, they could crush down and subvert any sort of a popular general uprising, as we saw, by the way, with the Occupy protests 3 years ago. Anyway, again, I give Jones a lot of credit. And by the way, just as an aside, this guy runs a very, very successful charity that he started about 30 years ago called the Robin Hood Foundation, which has basically become a super exclusive A-list party now once a year that, all the glitterati and the financial titans and Hollywood celebs, they all want to go to this thing. So it's really, gone, I think, way beyond its initial intent, although they have raised, they said, in the last 30 years, something like $1 billion, and they distribute that to various causes and charities or what have you. But Jones said that there's only 3 ways out of this problem, or 3 ways it will be addressed. Number 1, he said war, okay? Number 2, he said revolution. And number 3, he said taxes. So, he's lumping in taxes, which he's putting that up there, obviously, because it seems like he is very personally afraid of that. He's lumping in taxes with war and revolution. In other words, to him, I guess, higher taxes equate, it's the same fear, it's on the same danger level to him as war or revolution. This is incredible, right? And it shows you the mind, like the guy, he comes out, he gives his speech, he talks about income and wealth inequality, and you're saying, yeah, that's great, Jones, a guy like you're very well known. People are going to focus on it now because these are the words coming out of your own mouth. And, so you have a lot of expectation and a lot of hope that, hey, we're finally getting a guy in the upper echelon of the very, very wealthy who's speaking out almost against, his own self-benefit. And then he's saying, well, it's only going to be solved 3 ways: to war, that's terrible, saying war, revolution, again, total upheaval of society, or taxes. Oh my God, think of it, the horror of it, the humanity, taxes on the very, very wealthy. It equates to war and revolution. So I thought this was really incredible and hugely, hugely disappointing. Maybe not really even disappointing, maybe kind of like expected, because what wasn't expected is for a guy like Jones to come out and talk about wealth inequality. Why does he want to give? So anyway, he goes on, right? And he says that we ought to think about businesses, capitalism. The problem with capitalism maybe is that companies should voluntarily, in other words, capitalists should voluntarily give back or give more of their profits, right? Well, that's not capitalism. Then that's not capitalism. So what is he suggesting there? Is he really suggesting socialism? I mean, these guys, and I think he has spoken out very strongly against socialism. That's kind of like when the state decides how it's going to be distributed. But he's saying that capitalists voluntarily, out of the goodness of their heart, need to give back that capital, those profits, or at least more of those profits, which is a great idea, but that's not capitalism, okay? And that's when he goes on to say, you know, he's put out these very high ideals, and he said we have a problem, and this wealth and income inequality cannot continue, and it's going to be solved by war or revolution or, God forbid, you know, taxes. And then he says this, he says, we gotta figure out a way for the private sector to fix this. And so that was the ultimate kind of letdown right there. Like, here these guys, they wanna, I mean, it's almost a charade. It's almost an act. They come out acting very genuine and wanting to appear extremely understanding and empathetic and deeply, deeply thoughtful about the problem. Then it's right back to the very same ideology which got us here in the first place. Like, the only thing in these guys' minds, the only way that we can fix this without, you know, the revolution and the war and, God forbid, the taxes, okay, is that the private sector. Why does it always have to be the private sector? Okay, why? I mean, you think about it. When John F. Kennedy, here's a great example. When John F. Kennedy was elected in 1960, and he said, we are going to put a man on the moon by the end of this decade. Did he say, we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of this decade, but it's got to be the private sector. That's the only way we're going to allow it to happen. And by the way, again, if we did go that route, we'd still be waiting to put a man on the moon. It's just not going to happen, okay? It's not going to happen. So, I mean, at first these guys come out and they seem, you know, very, very caring and deeply concerned about the issue. And then right away in their heads, there's only one path to pursue, and that is the same exact path which brought us to this problem in the first place. So there are no new ideas here. He doesn't have any new ideas. He's talking about it, but it's going to go nowhere. It's going to go nowhere. So it's very disturbing, because a guy who has the power, who has the potential to really focus, get people to focus on this issue and say, well, here's a guy, he's not the 99%. He's right up there at the top, and he's saying we have a problem. And then he'll offer a solution which will solve nothing. And then when we try to do it that way and it doesn't work, people will say, well, you see, income and wealth inequality is the normal condition. We'll start to call that the normal condition, because we've approached the problem and tried to solve it the wrong way. And we're listening to guys like him, okay? Anyway, that's all I had to say about that. Tune in for my next video. This is Mike Norman. Bye-bye.